January 14th, 2024. Well, one thing I want to kind of get into is about these fires that have been raging out in Los Angeles area, and the kind of the political debate that sort of stirred up around it. And what you'll see, of course, is the left is pushing the idea that this is all a result of global warming, or anthropogenic global warming to be more specific. I mean, no, I don't think anybody's debating that climates have changed over the history of the Earth and are continuing to change. So that's really a non-issue, actually. The actual issue is more that what's causing it. And then there are probably many factors that are causing it. But at any rate, they're doing, of course, President-elect Trump, very soon to be President Trump, has been pointing out that the land management over there and the lack of water management has been the big problem. And since one of the major fires at the Palisades, of course, they had this large potential reservoir that was empty and not available to support the firefighting effort. We all heard that story. But one thing that I'm kind of noticing about this whole subject is an interesting degree of, let's say, hypocrisy or blindness on the part of the left on the subject of this. Let's, for the moment, now we all have our attitudes toward the anthropogenic global warming, that is the human-caused global warming theory, that our own industrial output is causing it mostly, or that it's actually a significant amount of warming. Even that itself is a bit controversial in places because there are certainly, as there's been a lot of urbanization, many of the measurement stations have become more urbanized and therefore are heat sinks, which probably skew the numbers upward to some degree anyhow. And with the fall of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of lack of Siberian stations that were just not managed anymore. So there's that aspect, there's satellite data, all kind of stuff. Now getting the real question about, in fact, not necessarily against the idea that there's a degree of warming. However, it all has a major political nature to it too, because it gives various governments the legitimacy to seize more power and control over everything, right? But anyhow, let's for the moment suspend our disbelief, even though we may have it, and say, let's believe that the global warming theory and models are actually correct. Then let's look at the behavior of the governmental entities in California. If they really believe that we're in an area of increased global warming, and that warming will cause climatic events like the winds that are flaming up, or causing these fires to run out of control, then how should they be behaving? Because obviously they could argue that in the long run their mitigation efforts, such as going to electric cars and renewable energy sources and all that, might have an impact, but even the theoretical impacts have been projected won't reverse global warming in their model. If by the end of the century it will just reduce it from what it might have been in their theory. And I'm talking about in theory. So how should they be behaving? Shouldn't they be making mitigation measures so that, for example, they should be extremely careful that they're prepared to, clear out any foliage that might catch on fire, that they have adequate water and fire department resources to engage in any fires that break out? I mean, you would think they'd be on ultra high alert if they really believe we're actually facing this warming climate that's going to change everything and make the fires more devastating, right? But in fact, they've not done that. They've done quite the opposite, right? So the question is, do they believe in their own theory, really, or are they simply using it as a political vehicle to achieve power? And that's been one of the biggest accusations against it, as well, has been that it really is if you accept it, then you give more power to governments and other entities to control your life, to what kind of car you drive, how you heat your hot water for to wash dishes or to have a bath or shower or whatever. So I think this is an interesting point we need to think about when we hear their pushback against Trump's arguments, because they themselves are not behaving as if they believe their own theory, really. That's an interesting point to consider. Anyway, so if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and you can also find me on Rumble if in fact you get me there. So, at any rate, that information is in the description below. So, yeah, that's kind of the way I see it, that these guys are kind of giving us a song and dance, but they don't seem to be very logical about what they're saying. And of course, the whole issue then of the bigger issue of anthropogenic global warming and the degree to which that is a valid theory is a whole other issue. I mean, it's certainly possible there's a degree of that. There's also a possibility that there'll be countervailing forces in nature that will mitigate it significantly as well. So, I mean, one of the problems with it, I think, for believability for a long time has been the fact that there's always been a disconnect between the technical data and the reports that they have in these climate council meetings and what the executive summary for policymakers says. That one of them presents data with great degrees of uncertainty, and the other one comes up with this idea that we're facing a climate crisis. And so, it's hard to know how much you really want to do on this at this point. And also, some of the things that would be mitigating, such as nuclear energy, aren't really generally being pursued aggressively by the same people that advocate this theory. So they seem to be talking in two different directions at once. So, at any rate, that's kind of a point I wanted to make about that. I hope that people find it interesting. Okay, we're now going into the period where the presidential cabinet appointees of Trump are going to go before the Senate. I guess on Tuesday, which is the day that we put this video out, is Pete Hegseth for the Secretary of Defense is one of the ones that's going to be the most controversial and opposed. And I certainly hope that Pete gets through there, because I think, I mean, in general, part of what's going on here, I think, is that Trump has had problems in his first term with the people they appointed actually working against his interests, maybe not even honest with him, maybe disobeying his orders. And so I think that's led to a situation where he's going for people the normal qualifications that we might be looking for, but has one qualification, is that they will be loyal to him. And I think that's one of his main points. The other thing to consider about it is that I forget the name of the guy, but the person he's appointed for Deputy Secretary of Defense has a very strong background in the defense industry, and he's very knowledgeable about the whole issue of contracts and the weapon systems and all that sort of thing. So I think all in all, it'll be a good team. I tend to think Hegseth is mostly there for personnel policy issues as much as anything else. That's the main reason he was picked. Yeah, one of the things that Pete is particularly known for is he's written some books about the issue of he's opposed to DEI and also this neo-Marxist practices that got into the educational system and so forth over the past many years. And so I think it's that kind of maybe ideological persuasion that he's bringing to the table there. And of course, that's why the Democrats are going to be 100% opposed to him. And the real question is, can we get through a few recalcitrant Republicans and get him picked? Because I don't think he's going to go in there and start firing a bunch of generals and all that stuff. I think that's probably won't happen, unless, of course, they refuse to carry out instructions. And those that do that, of course, should be removed. I mean, because what we're trying to do is restore the concept of meritocracy, which the military has long been known for, rather than getting into this excessive DEI. Now, it's always a tricky issue, of course. There is a problem that, there can be residual biases and prejudices against various groups, and that's what things like this are designed to correct, at least in principle. However, I think it goes beyond that, and you eventually get to the point where you're simply trying to achieve a statistical outcome rather than to actually get the best merit-based people. And of course, that's also bad for people in various minority groups from the point of view that people then will tend to think they got there because of that rather than because of their merit, which many of whom have all the merit they need to have to be in the positions they're in. But the problem is when you actually have a formal policy that allows this to happen, and occasionally does bring in people that are clearly unqualified just to meet a criteria of statistics. That's where I think it backfires and causes trouble for everybody and a lot of dissension. So anyway, but that's, I think, probably the main issue. I don't think that Pete is being brought in because he brings some grand vision of deterrence or military power or anything like that. Obviously, he wants have the force to be as capable as possible. We'll have to see what all happens. There's been a lot of propaganda going around. One thing I personally am opposed to, and I keep hearing this, it sounds like the right is almost mimicking the left of years gone by, and that is trying to blame the defense industrial community for causing the wars. And I don't believe that's at all true. I think the wars are caused by the State Department. The wars are caused by the presidents. They're not caused by a defense contractor saying, "Gee, our profits are down. We need more business. Could you start a war for us so we can sell more products?" It may well be true that once something gets started, that Congress will back it because of the economic impact for their districts. I don't deny that. But that's Congress again more than the contractors. The contractors always want business if they can get it. But I don't think they have the ability to actually influence policy in a hostile or we didn't go into Afghanistan the way we did because of defense contractors wanting to, right? We went in there because of 9/11. And when we went in there to deal with 9/11, somebody got the idea we ought to stay for however many years and transform the country into a democracy or something. And of course, establish rights for everybody, including women and so forth, and education. And then, of course, it all falls apart after enough years. And then what happens? Then the women are all being beaten by these thugs and losing what they gain. So it's a futile effort, but it's politically driven, in my opinion, more than anybody else. And in fact, many of the things I think that defense and military experts would want to have done during that period, weren't done. Our strategic forces were allowed to somewhat atrophy during that period. I think, for instance, our tactical fighter force is less than what it should be as we see the new fighters coming out of China with a very limited number of F-22s that we produce because we wanted to emphasize fighting wars like Afghanistan. So I don't think that the military community writ large really was saying this is the way to go. I think it's where the political leadership went, and they did it for their own policy-related viewpoints. Anyway, that's my thought on that. By the way, I'll be wrapping this up for now. I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble as always, and you can follow my comments on the social media accounts, and you follow me there. Particularly, I've gotten a lot of followers on Truth, I've noticed, and I need to put more time-to-time posts or echo anyone I make on, say, on X, put it on Truth also. So anyway, I'll be wrapping this up for now, and until next time.